recommends that when someone approaches you and you reasonably understand what they're asking, what they're saying, and in particular, if you are the person of privilege in the conversation, don't use a lot of time correcting the way in which they are presenting the information to you. So long as they are not coming to you in a really threatening way where you cannot lean in and see past what's happening, see what you can do to receive what is being said, allow the communication to happen, and then if you need to, circle back around after you have addressed what's going on. Circle back around, and perhaps if you have suggestions like, hey, can you not burst into my office? I know this was urgent, I know this was important, but it really violated a boundary, right? Or if you are listening to someone speak and their dialect or the way that they say their words does not line up with the way that you say your words, but again, you reasonably understand what the question or the need is, rhetorical justice just says pull back for a minute. Don't assume that the priority is for you to be in an instructive mode in that moment. Maybe you can help in a different way. And then if you are that person's mentor or teacher or leader or guide or supervisor, something of that nature, and you want to assist them and they are open to that, then you can kind of come back around to that. Let me give you a recent example. I work with young people, and I was working on asking the young people to talk about a theme in a story, right? A theme in a story. And the theme was that sometimes it is the children in a family who have to be courageous and make decisions or do behaviors that, in some instances, save or significantly help a family. So one of the things that one of the kids put on his poster was sometimes you gotta bend to help the fam. And I said, great, put that, because I understand what the line was. Sometimes you have to bend or be flexible or stretch yourself in order to help out your family, right? Because this was being done in an English and a teaching context, the next day I asked if he would create a formal sentence for that and put it in the footnotes, so that if I were asked, are you making clear with your folks, the folks that you're working with, that it's important to be able to code switch? We'll talk about code switching maybe a different day. I can say yes, we had that conversation. But it was not my reflex to say, oh, you can't say that because you can't say gotta. And, bend and fam don't rhyme. And while that's not an invalid piece of input, sometimes the important thing is to recognize what someone is saying and to acknowledge that you understand what they're saying and lean into the message. Now, there's also the situation where you may not agree with the message, or you are just so taken aback that you find yourself unable to respond with grace. Practice. So justice I'm going to tell you a teeny bit about her backstory, their backstory. We're not really sure about Justice's gender. I'm just not real sure. Justice has bright orange hair, sort of a mohawk thing going, if there isn't a better, less appropriated way to say that hairstyle. Maybe I should look into that. In any case, she has a P. She's a P. Did I mention? She has a PhD in some sort of religious studies. So I guess they call that a PhDiv or something. I don't really know, in divinity. In any case, she prides herself in leaning in and having successful interactions with people who are different from her and just different in terms of their being marginalized, whether it is based on gender or sexuality or where they are from or their skin color or complexion or the way they dress or their ability or disability or differences. That's her shtick. Her job is to work with people. Get it? People. Again, let me revisit the fact that the concept and the book that is going to be written about it, they are self-help in nature. So they are non-fiction, sort of transformational concepts with the intent to provide readers and listeners and practitioners with a larger toolbox of things to do, ways to respond, to help themselves as they encounter, as one of my comrades called it, sticky situations throughout the course of the day. But we have dropped in 7 characters. Some people say they're like mnemonic devices, not demonic, mnemonic, MNEMONIC, mnemonic devices, muses, just to help you remember the 7 common practices, right? So, what I was saying about Justice, who represents the rhetorical justice tenet, is that their background is studying divinity. So this P has studied lots of religions and has an interesting way of showing up, because there's the expectation that justice is going to be more conservative. Although you look at the hair and you're like, nah. But there's the expectation that with all of this religious training, justice would show up and be more on the conservative side, and that could not be farther from the truth. And in fact, justice's tragic flaw is sometimes their piety. How do you say that? Their piety, which is just being committed, right, to serving people, to showing up with humility consistently, or as some would say, religiously, spills over into piousness, which is now you're a bit sanctimonious about how much altruism you have, how interested you are in the well-being of other people. And it can sometimes push its toes, that behavior in this P. Do P's have toes? Yes, yes, they do. It can give off a flavor sometimes of just patting oneself on the back a little too hard, and sort of a judgmental, how could you not know this? How could you not know how to show up with this particular group of people or that group of people? Sometimes Justice forgets, one, that Justice has had training in this regard. Justice works with a population of folks with disabilities. In this P's own life, there are a number of different intersecting categories of marginalization, and Justice is just smart and was raised pretty good. Parents are not quite as left-leaning, and there's some dialogue that I've written into the book that shows that sometimes we are doing our best and we are attempting to show up for folks, and sometimes we are misread, misunderstood, and other times people say, hey, slow down, because maybe we just need to slow down. Maybe we need to remember that we are not the only advocate, the only activist, the only person who knows how to do good work with people who are different from us. And if we are acting in the role of a support person or advocate, that's an important thing to remember. So so that is Justice's tragic flaw. We might say that Justice has a great heart and is very intellectually savvy, and just needs to circle back around and check in with their humility on the topic of rhetorical justice. So with that, I thank you for listening and for coming by and spending this time with me, and I look forward to hearing your questions, seeing your comments. I hope that you will follow these videos and subscribe to the Radically Contented channels. And I'll see you next time. My name is Cole Thomas. Again, you can hashtag 7CPs, and Radically Contented. Make sure you put TED on the end. There's another something out there by someone else. This came up last year, and so I'm now having to add that caveat. All right, take care.